feeling.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been asking ourselves a lot of questions about what is it that makes the original films look the way they do? What is it that people love about, particularly when you're talking about visual effects shots like spaceships? Because, you know, quite frankly, there's been a bit of a backlash to CG visual effects over the last decade or so. You know, they're ubiquitous, they're everywhere, and people have this kind of rosy tinted nostalgia for the visual effects shots of the original trilogy. So we actually embarked on a whole sort of exploration of looking at shots from the original trilogy and recreating them in CG to sort of figure out what it is that makes them look and feel like they do, and what things to keep and what things to discard in order for the effects to feel modern and more realistic as we're capable of doing now, but still have the feeling. So we went on a whole sort of research project about that, and we took shots from episodes 4, 5, and 6 and did digital versions of them, or added digital, like there might be a shot of the Millennium Falcon and we'd add a second Falcon in the shot that was digital, and just try and match it in as best as we could and look at things. But there was all kinds of examination about the way shots are designed and the way the lighting looks and all kinds of things. And, you know, Rogue One is a film that takes place minutes before the events of Episode 4, you know, the original Star Wars film. So, you know, in terms of props and locations and costumes, it's super nostalgic. It really looks and feels like the original films. And yet Gareth Edwards shot the film in a way that makes it really feel really fresh. And it's written in a way that's fresh. It has, I think, more mature emotional stakes and some other things. So that was a lot of fun. And that played a role in figuring out what to keep, you know, what to emulate from the old films so that there's that warm feeling of nostalgia, and then what to make new and fresh and original. Well, I mean that's probably the central issue with computer-generated visual effects these days, is that since you can do almost everything, almost anything, you know, there's still some frontiers that we're pushing on, but you know, the question is what to do and how to do it. And a lot of that, fortunately, I think, is falling back on the folks that it should be on, which is the writers and the directors, to, like, you know, come up with really interesting, cool concepts that are going to make people's brains explode. So it's the ideas themselves, and then we can execute those ideas to the best of our ability, and it'll look amazing. But if you start with an idea that's a cliche or is hollow in some way, you know, no amount of whiz-bang visual effects obviously is going to fix that. I mean, people are well aware of that now. But, you know, for me, it's exciting to sort of say, hey, let's make the ideas great. We know how to make it look great. We can make it look like anything you want. So give us a great idea. To me, that's just putting the job back in the right people's hands. So. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Constraints are always a good thing. You know, limitations are great. Having to push against them is the best thing. In fact, if we're not beginning a project that has some aspect that we don't know how to do yet, which in itself is a sort of limitation, you know, if it doesn't frighten us a little bit to embark on a project, then you know, it's not very interesting to me, and that's part of having limitations. It's like if you're not bumping up against the ceiling, you know, what's the point of doing it? So, yeah. It's kind of a weird rabbit hole you go down. I mean, the obvious examples of this are, you know, when we moved from shooting on film to shooting digitally, we frequently asked to add back in film grain or gate weave or other artifacts that you'd find with film cameras that you know, film engineers through the whole history of cinema have been laboring to eliminate. And we're asked to sort of re-include them. I mean, almost to the point where they like, can you put a scratch on the film? We don't, not quite there, but, you know, almost to that point. But, you know, that's fun. I think that's part of the era that we're in now, this transition from you know, the old school to the new school, and there are certain things that have to be preserved for a while. But kids who grow up seeing film, not seeing film, but seeing digital projection in cinema, if I took them to my son to a movie theater that's actually showing a 35mm print, I think he'd be like, why is the image going like this? And what are the scratches every time the reel changes and all the dirt? And, whereas I see that and I'm like, oh, it's film, and then I think he sees it like, what is that? It looks like so old. So I think, that's just a natural part of that. But it gets into, that whole question though, gets into all areas of visual effects. Like we had shots of our Star Destroyers in the film. And when the shots, they were in some of the first trailers for the film. And I saw comments online where people were like, oh my God, it's amazing. It looks like a model. And, when I was growing up, that was the last thing you wanted to hear with a visual effects shot, or somebody said, it looks like a model. Now somebody says it's a compliment. And then I saw somebody said, it was on Twitter, this guy said, it looks too much like a model. And then I was like, okay, I don't even know what world I'm living in anymore. Like, I don't even know how to respond to that. It looks too much like a model. So it's a very strange world we're in now. But, again, the younger generations come up and they have less and less love for film grain and things like that, and it's just going to be a new world. And people like us, for like me, my age, are going to have to, get used to it. Personally, I'd love to move past it all. Like, I know there have been some experiments in the last few years, Ang Lee's recent film and the Hobbit films, and I guess it feels like the audience isn't quite ready for that yet, maybe, but I find that stuff super exciting. And, I see all the same stuff everybody else sees, where it's like, well, it's weird, it doesn't feel like film, but I'm not sure that's a problem. I think that's just, a natural result of moving on to new technologies and new looks and new feels and, all that stuff. And I don't know. I think it's been seen as a problem for so long, but I think it's an opportunity, and we'll just keep moving on, and eventually all the old chromatic aberration or gate weave or all these different artifacts of the old processes, I think ultimately will melt away. I just think people will stop needing to ask for them. It's like there's almost like a security blanket. Like everybody just wants their favorite sweater so they can watch their movie, and I think eventually that's going to go away. The democratization of tools, I don't think has harmed us at all. I think it's been exciting. It's good for the industry. Plus, there's that quote, I forget who said it, where somebody saying, look, like having a fancy word processor doesn't help you write any better. People have had pencil and paper for millennia, and it doesn't produce better. You still have the same sort of number of people producing brilliant novels versus just writing. And I think it's kind of the same with filmmaking and visual effects tools. And I'm happy that the tools are way more accessible to young people. I just think that's a huge plus. What I think has been a lot tougher on my industry is the global worldwide spread of the work to areas where there are tax incentives and there are subsidies and so forth. That's made it a lot harder. That's made people have to pick up their families and move to a different country, and then that tax incentive got yanked away by a changing government. Okay, now you get to move over here, and I think that kind of thing has been harder on people. It's created opportunities for sure. There are parts of the world now that have huge, very muscular visual effects industries that are almost like they're on steroids. They're much larger than they would naturally be given where they are in the world. But that's been meant awesome opportunity for the artists in those parts of the world. So, it kind of depends on where you live and who you are as to whether it's a problem or a solution to a problem. So, but for those of us in California, obviously the landscape has shifted rather dramatically in the last decade and a half, and we just have to keep on keeping on and figure out how to keep doing it in the new world of visual effects, and that's what it is.